When it comes to Universal Orlando Resort, everyone has their eyes on the grand prize, the shiny thing in the distance, that being the brand new theme park opening up in 2025, Epic Universe. Now, it may be safe to assume that after this new theme park opens, Universal will take a few years off, relish in their achievements, and say, hey, that theme park will do enough to drive up attendance and profits. But they're not doing that. Universal has plans. Big plans for their existing parks in the coming years after Epic Universe already is opened, that not only will significantly improve both Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida, but will make them look completely different than they do today. Universal has been able to use Epic Universe as a shield by which that they can lurk in the shadows and work in silence on future projects at the existing parks that people don't even realize are coming. And this is all in spite of the fact that Universal is investing heavily in the existing parks, even leading up to Epic Universe's opening. Of course, this year, we got the new Minions Land with Illumination's Villain Con Minion Blast, which will gladly join Hagrid in the Mouthful Hall of Fame. And in 2024, just 1 year before Epic Universe opens, we're going to be getting a whole new land to replace Kids Zone, this being a DreamWorks land based on a number of their properties. So as you can see from this map, just in the coming years leading up to Epic Universe, Universal Studios Florida is already going to be drastically changed. But just wait until you see what this map looks like by the time this video is all said and done. So for the existing parks, what does Universal have up their sleeves post-Epic Universe? Well, let's start with the easy pickings. The easiest pick of them all being the Lost Continent. Of course, earlier this year in May, Poseidon's Fury unexpectedly closed for good. This shockingly came just a year after the attraction had received an extensive refurbishment, meaning that something had to have changed for the ride to have closed so abruptly. Many speculate that given the timing of this closure, that Universal had decided to fast track all Nintendo projects after the success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The idea behind this being that the Lost Continent would be replaced by The Legend of Zelda. Now, 4 months later, we know, of course, that this was not true, because you can literally still walk right up to Poseidon's Fury, knock on the door, shout, "Hey, anyone there?" and you'll get no response because the building has been left abandoned and untouched since the attraction closed. Clearly, given Poseidon's Fury's refurbishment in 2022, and the fact they have not touched the attraction since, is absolutely indicative of the fact that Universal did not intend for it to close on that date, and it was probably because of some infrastructure or technical issue that would have required another refurbishment to keep the ride operating that caused them to say, you know what, we're probably only going to have this attraction open for a few more years anyways, we are not going to go ahead and pour that money into this attraction. When it's not even that popular to begin with, we're just going to shut it down and leave it standing but not operating like the 8th Voyage of Sinbad. Which, if you don't know, the 8th Voyage of Sinbad is the only other attraction in the Lost Continent, and it's been closed since 2017, meaning that now the Lost Continent has no operating attractions. It's just a land with a bunch of shops and restaurants, that's it, making it prime real estate for replacement. Though, that being said, look at the size of this. It's not a massive land, but it is a lot of space to be taking up. Bottom line is, it's gonna likely be a pretty major project replacing this land. So it's not likely to come in the super near term, but it's also not going to be a project that's super far out. Likely, I think that we could see the Lost Continent close and start being replaced as early as next year and as late as 2027. But I think that both of those are probably the extremes. The more likely years for it to close are 2025 and 2026, with the replacement opening in either 2026 or 2027. But folks, we're just getting started here. Why don't we go ahead and tackle some more easy pickings? One is Fear Factor Live, which closed a few years ago at this point, and has been left similarly standing but not operating for all that time. There were rumors very early on that seemed to have some serious credence to them, saying that Fear Factor Live would be replaced by a new Harry Potter attraction, which would be a VR broomstick ride. Now, in my video on the subject, I called that idea stupid and dumb. And lo and behold, though there were permits to actually tear down Fear Factor Live and build something new, which likely would have been this attraction, those plans were scrapped, leaving Fear Factor Live still standing and presumably this VR attraction dead in the water. Thank goodness. Meaning that the Fear Factor Live plot is back up for grabs. Though, there is one caveat. That being that the theater is still used for Halloween Horror Nights, so unless plans change there, or they're willing to give up the theater and not hold a show there, or find somewhere else to hold it, or just give up the show entirely, the Fear Factor stage will be kept in a state of limbo, but we do know eventually it will get replaced. Speaking of theaters, there's also the Toon Lagoon Theater in Islands of Adventure that hasn't had a consistent show running in it for years. That's, of course, up for grabs, but the question is, does Universal really want to expand Toon Lagoon? It probably wouldn't be a very wise decision to try and expand Marvel, since Disney's involved in that process and would try and blockade them every step of the way, so that doesn't really benefit them there. So who knows, the Toon Lagoon Theater, even though it's been empty and vacant for ages, could still be left standing when all is said and done. But how about one last easy pickings for you? It's another theater. It's the Blue Man Group Theater. The Blue Man Group were evicted from Universal Orlando Resort in 2021, and that theater has been left, once again, vacant and untouched. Do you see a pattern here? Universal is setting up all of these places that have nothing going on in them, and they're just primed and ready for after Epic Universe to be replaced. But the Blue Man Group Theater is a special case. As you might already know, the Blue Man Group Theater is actually not a part of either of the parks. It's actually technically a part of City Walk, meaning that this place is kind of up for grabs for either park to swallow up and take into its holdings. Of course, the most likely option would be to expand into Universal Studios Florida, since the building is practically touching Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. This would make it an ideal candidate to either expand Minions Land or add in a new Illuminations property, whether it be Secret Life of Pets or Sing. There's also the possibility that Universal could reach and bring it into Islands of Adventure, which, of course, based on where it's located, would make it a part of Seuss Landing. And maybe this is the opportunity to give rides to some of the more beloved Seuss characters who have not yet received an attraction. Just saying. So let's take a breather and take a look where we're at. This is what could be replaced just in the few couple of years after Epic Universe is open at the existing Universal parks. And this is just the easy pickings. This is just the stuff that's already closed, that's already just waiting for something new to come in to take over the spot. But folks, it doesn't stop there. Universal still has a lot more up their sleeve. You see, the Epic Universe plot is not just going to be used for Epic Universe and maybe some future stuff down the line. There's also going to be backstage areas that are currently at the existing Universal parks that are going to be moved over to Epic Universe, meaning that there are plenty of backstage buildings that are going to be up for grabs as well in the coming years. This will give the existing Universal parks the opportunity to expand, not replace, but expand for the first time since Skull Island Reign of Kong opened in 2016. Now you may be saying to yourself, what do you mean backstage areas? Are you talking about like where the employees go on their lunch breaks? Like, no. Those things obviously have to stay. We're talking about all these other administrative buildings they're using for storage of certain things. These can all get moved over to the Epic Universe plot, which they have so much land there, and can open up a lot more land for the existing parks to expand to. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Now, I'm no expert here. I don't know what every single one of these backstage buildings are for, so it's very possible that many of the ones I have highlighted here actually are not up for grabs, right? Can't be touched, won't be touched, aren't being moved to Epic Universe, and will be left standing. On top of this, take a look what I have in orange there. Everything I have in orange is behind the Hogwarts Express. In case you didn't know, the Hogwarts Express is an elevated railway that runs from Universal Studios Florida to Islands of Adventure. It is not covered by anything, it is not hidden, it is right out in the wide open. So even though there's a lot of space to be had back here, if Universal wanted to expand to these backstage areas, they would need to do something about the Hogwarts Express, whether it be cover it up, dampen the noise, find some sort of tunnel that can go underneath it for guests to travel through. They won't even notice that it's there. There had to be some, creativity going on to try and keep that out of guests' view. So with that being the case, what I have in orange will likely be kept for a later date, and some of it may not ever get touched. Another thing to keep in mind is that Also, a lot of the areas I have in red are currently used for Halloween Horror Nights tents. So it's possible that parts of the areas I have in red may not end up being replaced. Speaking of expansion, it's also important to note that there is an expansion pad at Volcano Bay, the water park that Universal's had open since 2017, and it has not been touched since then. So you're talking about opportunities to expand, there's another one sitting right on the table for Universal to use. So you put it all together, and I think you start to get the idea of what I'm trying to say about the parks being completely overhauled in the coming years. Just because Epic Universe is on the way does not mean Universal is going to slow down or give up or relax or put their feet on the table and say, we did enough. No. Universal is keeping their foot on the gas pedal, and they are going 100 miles per hour down the highway, and they are not showing any signs of slowing down. But folks, why don't I throw another wrench into this? With Fear Factor Live closed, Men in Black Alien Attack is the only ride left in the World Expo area. Being a third-party property that Universal has to pay Sony to have in their parks, it might be of interest for Universal, instead of refurbishing this thing, since it is over 20 years old now, to instead just tear it down and replace it with something else. And right next door to Men in Black Alien Attack is the Simpsons Land, Springfield, USA. And of course, as we know, or at least we believe we know, the rights for Simpsons is supposed to be up in 2028. Of course, who owns the rights to Simpsons now? It's Disney. And regardless of what Disney's plans are for Simpsons in the parks, it's pretty likely that Disney will drive a hard bargain for Universal to keep the rights. So there's a very high likelihood that Universal could end up getting rid of their Simpsons Land, meaning that this back right part of the park from Fear Factor Live all the way through these backstage areas, including also what's happening over at Kids Zone, could look completely different in a few years' time. I mean, it could be possible that by the end of the decade, that Universal Studios Florida in particular could look like a completely different park. And given the complaints that people have had about the park for years now, about its over-reliance on screens, its lack of variety, its lack of high-level theming, it seems that these changes could really address those issues. And here's the funny part, is that many of you in the comments are probably going to be like, what about Toon Lagoon? What about Fast and Furious Supercharged? Are these going to go anytime soon? And that's the thing. They could, but these are certainly bigger fish to fry, right? Those are probably after the end of the decade if they are to be replaced. Personally, I think Toon Lagoon should stay. That's just me. But the point remains, Universal is going to continue to keep constantly changing year in and year out. They're going to keep their mantra. They're going to keep their business plan. And despite Epic Universe coming along, things are not going to change for how Universal operates. And let's not forget that in the same time that all of these things are going to be getting replaced, we will also be seeing expansion pads in Epic Universe be utilized, building that park out even further. So, I mean, if you are a fan of not just Universal, but theme parks in general, I mean, this has got to be exciting stuff, especially when you consider their number one competitor, Disney, literally has Jack Diddley squat planned for the future and has no answer whatsoever, not just to Epic Universe, but to all this other stuff that they're doing at their existing parks. Disney is completely just left doing nothing. And I understand, again, it's not the parks people's fault. It's upper management who's taking all their money and giving it away to Disney Plus to flush down the drain. But it doesn't matter. Disney Parks are going to be left in the dust, and Universal is going to keep growing, keep expanding, keep improving until it's too late. So anyway, folks, let me know what you guys think in the comments. What expansion are you most excited for? Are you excited to see what replaces Lost Continent? Or maybe these backstage areas, maybe you're curious to see how the parks could grow? Let me know in the comments. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Peace.